Welcome to regular board meeting, October 26th, 2020. If you'd please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Ms. Munger, can we get a roll call, please?
It looks like everyone but Mr. Densler is present.
All right.
I don't know if she's online.
He had a personal situation and let me know he would not be attending tonight. All right. Mrs. Kettlehut, we're going to start with audience participation. I believe we have some. All right. Diane Gibson, please.
Right here.
Okay. If you want to go to the podium, please, and then just introduce your name and address. And this is your time to share commentary with the board. There is a 5-minute limit on the commentary, and we welcome you to speak.
My name is Diane Gibson. I live out of Battle Creek. And my children attend Penn Middle School. Grade 8, attended school in the Lake Tree. They have received a wonderful education on both parts. On October 20th, I sent an email to Dr. Ponyo and all of the school board members listing the concerns I'm having about the return to school plan that was developed by the school board. I asked for a reply, and to this date, I've heard nothing from anyone. It is apparent to me that my concerns were not taken seriously. This apathy greatly concerns me. It has me wondering why any board here are not responsive to the concerns of a parent. Did anyone read my email?
Let me just make a statement here. So this isn't going to be interactive, but it is your opportunity to speak.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I thought that was a question. Okay.
So now I'm here in person to tell you what my concerns are, so that you're aware of them. My first concern is the quality of the education they're receiving this year. Because of the way the plan is arranged, I feel that my boys are only receiving about 40% of the education they would normally be getting. They're given assignments and are essentially teaching themselves, since they are not in the classroom with the teacher to answer questions around. My children need to be back in the classroom full time. They want to be in school, but without the masks. They need teachers teaching them, and they need to be with their friends. They just want normal. Hybrid program is not working, and they hate it. A second concern for me is getting my boys home from school safely. They ride their bikes. We don't live in terrible distance, but when the weather is inclement or it's too cold or snowy, in the past I've made arrangements with their friends' and parents to bring them home. I work outside of the house full time in a busy healthcare setting. My schedule allows me to get them to school, but I can't do work to pick them up. Unfortunately, I don't have a village. I don't have family or a support system. And their father's permanently disabled with a traumatic brain injury, so that makes him unreliable. But because of the way you've structured the school plan, all of my friends that I would rely on are going on opportunities. Just last week, one of my coworkers kindly volunteered to pick my kids up at school. She went out of her way. She came from St. John Hospital to Messiah and Jefferson, and then had to drive all the way home to Tennant Valley. I can't depend on that every day. There are many phone calls throughout my workday to check to make sure they're completing the assigned work and are understanding. I'm now at a point where I feel like I need to take a leave of absence from my job to make sure my kids are getting home safely and are getting a quality education. I shouldn't have to choose between working or making sure my kids are educated. My third concern is the amount of chemical exposure all the students are receiving. The video of the classroom is being closed down, essentially. It's horrifying because it's on every surface that they touch. They're required to wipe down their desks when they walk in the room or they leave. hand sanitizer when they walk into every classroom. It just seems to be a bit of overkill. Every surface they touch has chemical on it. Aside from the chemical absorption, this is all very dry to the skin, which is our first defense against infection. You dry out the skin, you cause cracks and breaks, allowing infection to enter. They don't have a chance to touch anything to get germs on their hands, much less pass it along. Is all the chemical exposure to prevent a virus with a 99.9% survivability rate going to cause cancer, liver failure, infertility, autoimmune disease, or many other diseases down the road? I seem to be the only one concerned about this. And lastly, let's unmask these children. Aside from the health problems they can cause, masks suppress individuality, muffle our children's voices, and prevent facial expression. They are oppressive, they are a form of restraint, they interfere with breathing. This goes completely against the revised school code Act 451 of 1976. And then there's the hypocrisy. I have seen teachers right next to each other on my children's Chromebook with no masks on. My children have told me about school staff walking together outside, but if the students get too close together, they're told to get back on their anchor. And one of my sons was standing alone outside the school and was told by a teacher to mask up. He was outside and alone. What I don't hear from my son is about the mask breaks they were supposed to be getting. On October 2nd, the Supreme Court of Michigan declared all of the governor's executive orders null and void, in turn making the return to school plan null and void. But yet we continue to follow this unconstitutional plan that is hindering the education of all the children in Lake Shore School District. The state health department is attempting to continue these orders, and they don't have this authority either. Every single one of you is an elected official, and as such, you have taken an oath to uphold the Constitution of Michigan and of the United States. Your actions here are extremely distressing to me. I am a citizen and a taxpayer in the city of St. Clair Shores, and I have a voice and a ballot to express my dismay and disapproval. And I will use this opportunity to help effect the change that is needed to make the educational system the best I can for my children and all the children in the district.
All right, Kim, I'm not sure how the last name is pronounced. Only. Thank you.
My name is Kim Olner, and my child attends Lake Shore High School. Wearing a mask is not something we should, quote unquote.
Kim, sorry, address, please.
Pardon me?
Address, please.
229.
Thank you.
Wearing a mask is not something we should get used to. Symptoms of prolonged mask use include headaches, drowsiness, dizziness, issues in concentration. Symptoms disappear, and you now have chronic oxygen deprivation. To deprive a child's brain of oxygen from oxygen or restrict it in any way is criminal. Oxygen deficiency cannot be reversed. Diseases individuals are currently getting from wearing a mask: impetigo, bacterial infections on their face, Legionnaires, pleurisy, bacterial pneumonia, and dental issues. Whether a person wants to wear a restraint device that is actually ineffective to protect themselves from a virus should be voluntary. Children and adolescents are not to wear a mask at all. Masks violate school law. Not an order, school law. The revised school code, Act 451 of 1976, 38137B, Statement of Prohibited Practices. Section 130.07B, the state policy under section 130.07A shall include a clear statement that all of the following practices are prohibited for school personnel in the public schools of this state under all circumstances, including emergency situations. B, the deprivation of basic needs. Oxygen is a basic necessity, not breathing excessive carbon dioxide. H, any restraint that negatively impacts breathing. Any restraint that inhibits breathing to decrease, limit, or block the action or function of something in the body as an enzyme or organ. A mask is a restraint that is attached to their bodies by loops around their ears. For or they're inhibiting breathing. You do not have the right to mandate our children wear masks. Each one of you are violating the oath you took when you accepted your position as a school board member. You cannot use the return to school roadmap. This goes by the governor's phases, which are now null and void by the Michigan Supreme Court effective 10/2/2020 at 4:35 p.m. Not 21 days, not 28 days later. The CDC's considerations for wearing a mask and their guidance for K-12 administrators on the use of masks in school cannot be used either. The CDC only suggests or recommends the use of masks. They do not state that they require them. The OSHA Respiratory Protection Program has existed since 1979. It tests PPE to determine what is rated to do what. We know now from these studies, because you can actually Google them, that ear masks, surgical masks, and cloth masks protect you against the virus 0% of the time. Quoted in an RCT study, which is called BMJ Open, it's a mask study, along with many others that you Google, including Dr. Simone Gold's videos on masks. The average person is not trained on how to put on or take off a mask. You should be trained on how to use PPE equipment properly. Wearing a mask for longer than 2 hours lowers your immune function. What you are mandating emits cross-contamination and self-contamination, which increases the risk of getting COVID. You don't have to wear a mask at food establishments to eat, but a student has to wear a mask when they're sitting at their desk in the classroom. How about putting our children in the cafeteria, state that they're in a food establishment, and teach them from there? Again, this is not about masks, not about a virus. It is fear-mongering, and it is about control and compliance. My health is my control. My child's health is under my control. Your health is yours to control. You and the health department are overreaching and exercising rights you do not have. Our child's mental health and safety are at risk. Unmask our children now, or you are complicit.
All right, Rusty Arnold, please.
So this isn't really, it's a fake mic, it's okay. I have 5 kids, so I can speak loud enough for all of you to hear. 4 of my kids are in Lakeshore schools. Am I supposed to say my address?
Yes, please.
22015 Rosedale.
Thank you.
I want to say thanks for letting me speak to you today. Hopefully this doesn't fall on deaf ears. But like I said, I have 5 kids. We moved to Lakeshore 9 years ago. We love Lakeshore, okay? We love Lakeshore. But this year has been exceptionally ridiculous. 4 of my kids, 1 graduated last year, but 4 of my kids are in Lakeshore schools. 2 we unenrolled from Violet Elementary because of all this nonsense, okay? But 2, one's in middle school and one's in high school. And you're all here, and we're here because we love our kids. And you love kids. We care about kids. And all of you drove here, even though the risk of driving in the state of Michigan is 10 deaths per 100,000 people. But you're all here. You see, that's a risk. The reward outshadows the risk, though. It overshadows that risk. We weigh out risks all the time in life. The risk versus the reward of taking the risk. And all of us, we have kids, and probably many of you. You took the risk of having a child, which even in our modern day, in this country, is 20 deaths per 100,000 live births. So let's talk about the risk of COVID to our kids. In January and February, when we were watching this sweep across the planet, we had no idea what we were dealing with. And so I think Dr. Caponio made the right decision when we shut down on Friday the 13th, no less. Right? But that was a good decision because we didn't know what we were dealing with. And I'll never forget, we didn't let our kids leave the house for 5 weeks. We didn't let our oldest daughter see her boyfriend for 3 weeks. That's as long as they could hold out. My mom and dad, we told them not to come over. And I'll never forget, this image is burned in my mind. my mom bought something for our kids, and she put it in a bag, and went like this, threw it on the porch, and backed away slowly. Because we didn't know what we were dealing with then, but we do now. We discovered a lot more good data about this virus. Doctors have developed therapies and antiviral treatments that have reduced the death rate by 85% of what we were dealing with back when we closed school down. And the survival rate, like has been said, for kids aged 0 to 19, which is all the kids we're talking about right now, is 99.997. That's from the CDC. That's higher than the flu. I would never willingly put my children in harm's way, or anyone else's kids for that fact. But the fact of the matter is the virus statistically poses no threat to our kids at all, statistically. And there's plenty of data suggesting that kids are not super spreaders that we thought they might be. There's information in an article in The Atlantic called Schools Aren't Super Spreaders, dated 10/9/20 this year. Also, a man named Martin Kulldrup is a professor at Harvard. You can look that up. But let's just suppose for a minute that they are super spreaders, that they're disease-carrying grandma killers. Why is it that teachers are allowed to abdicate their jobs and their responsibility because they are afraid? Everyone else went back to work. And after this meeting, I can invite any of you to come with me and we can go eat at Chili's. We can sit in a booth together, not socially distanced, and not wearing a mask, and we can share a plate of nachos together. All the while, the wait staff treats us with kindness and hospitality. Why are my kids treated with more decency and trust at a local restaurant than the school they're enrolled in? In the fall of 2009, like I said, I had 5 kids, so one is turning 19. I've had kids in school for a while. In the fall of 2009, my kids were enrolled in school. And at that time, H1N1, swine flu, was ripping through the nation. And that particular flu disproportionately affected younger people. And when that school year started, the vaccine wasn't totally ready. And kids under 10 had to get it in 2 separate boosters. But we still started school. And swine flu took the lives of more young people than COVID has. And I wouldn't have wanted any of these measures on my kids then, and I don't want them on them now. We owe it to our children to give to them what all of you had. None of you have done this. None of the people before you have done this to you when you were in school. To make them go through one more day of this nonsense that you all never had to do is wrong. And it sets a precedent for the rest of their lives. They've been out of a regular school routine for 7 months. How much longer will you play games with my children's future and their education over concern for their safety? Every flu season, will my kids have to wear masks now? Do you allow neck gaiters? I know you do because my son wears one. I have a pamphlet here that I'm going to hand out to you. Okay? And in it shows an article that says neck gaiters, because of the way they actually break up your respiratory droplets into smaller droplets and increase your respiratory droplets by 10%. But you allow them. Why? Because it's about compliance and safety theater, not about actually mitigating the spread of anything, because they don't work. Cloth masks, some of you are wearing. I have an article in here, 97% infection rate, and they cause other infections. The idea that masks are some panacea that just is perfect is ridiculous and absurd, and you don't know what you're doing to kids. Masks with valves, I bet you allow those at school as well.
Mr. Arnold, your time is up. If you could wrap up, okay?
I tell you what, let me ask all these people, can I finish?
That,
Will
Mr.
you-
Arnold,
Yeah.
that's not how the program works.
How long was the time?
5 minutes and we're approaching 6. So I'm just
Okay,
asking you to
well-
wrap up. I'm not cutting you off.
Okay.
Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am. I will wrap up, I'm sorry.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Mhm.
Mask without do not prevent, they allow respiratory droplets to go right out. So this is safety theater. It's about compliance and it's political, not medical. By the way, nothing the government ever comes up with is temporary, except for tax cuts, those always expire. But 6,883 days ago, one person went on a commercial airliner and tried to detonate a shoe bomb. And since that day, the government's temporary fix has been for all of us to take our shoes off and throw them in dirty bins and walk around in socks at the airport. The truth is, our kids go to school and they will get sick. That's a fact of life. They'll get the flu, they'll get pink eye, lice, slap cheek virus, or any number of other infectious diseases that have always been a risk and that we don't have vaccines for. So please don't pretend anymore that this is about the safety of my children or anyone else's kids. Because many school districts have opened, especially in the South, and we're all watching. Some without mask mandates, for instance, Cherokee County opened August 4th, a peak spread in the Sun Belt in Georgia. They had 14 cases out of 42,200 kids and 6 cases out of 4,800 adult staff. The Michigan School Safe Start, which I don't know if you're still
Mr.
following
Arnold,
that.
we're at 7.5 minutes. I think I've been lenient. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
I will give you the information. I think I printed it off, but I may not. Hopefully this doesn't fall on deaf ears. There's some random controlled. Here's the thing. If there's data that says masks prevent the spread of COVID, there's plenty of data that says it doesn't. So why are you picking one side over the other?
All right, Mr. Migliacci?
Okay, so you guys heard me all last week here. I'm Justin Maniaci with the 21627 Lincoln Street. I understand the complexity that you guys all have in your shoulders. I appreciate Daniel for returning my email. Very nice response. I know that I sent to some board members. I just really wanted to say I really appreciate Rusty. Our children both go to school together, and I agree with all the segments he's presented to all of you today. What I really want to say is that I don't believe teachers do not have a right to not fully educate our children. They really have a moral obligation. And it's just as important to provide direct educational services as it is to provide direct health care services. Just as a police officer takes an oath to serve and protect, a teacher takes an oath to nurture the personal development of their students. Why can my children go play after school sports, go to the local gym, movie theater, go bowling, yet their most important part of their week is school? It's missing. And it's hurting them. It's hurting their development. Terrible. Just terrible. I hope it would be a general requirement to educate our children regardless of what is occurring today. This country has been through war. It's been through civil rights movements. Terrible things have happened. The education of our children has never suffered because of that. Aside from a child's home, no other setting has more influence on a child's health and well-being than their school. In-person school provides educational instruction, it supports the development of social and emotional skills, it creates a safe environment to learn, addresses nutritional needs, and facilitates physical activity. Educating their minds is just as important as them caring for their bodies. Who exactly are we protecting? I ask all of you to do the courageous thing and have our children return to school full time. We had parents in the room that have really showed a lot of emotions and honesty here, and I hope that you really take that to account. Mr. DePonio has been fantastic in communication. I understand the complex job that he has. I understand all of you have a very difficult job in your job as being school board members. And again, like everybody else in this room, I can say, we're very proud to call Lakeshore our home. You know, I brag to friends on how great this district is. My kids have been here since kindergarten. I have a middle schooler, I have a high schooler, and my high schooler is struggling. I had to work very closely with the teacher to get his grade from a D+ to a B-. But, you know, I'm scanning documents and working with him, and he told me he's learning nothing right now. It's just all procedure. He's not really gaining anything. He's going to school 40% is really hurting him. He's starting out his educational, this is the start of his academic, starting freshman year of high school. He was honor student, he's not honor student right now. And this is just terrible. It's absolutely terrible that we're moving as slow as we are. And I want all of you to really take myself and everybody else in this room really serious, how it's hurting them emotionally. You know, they want to go to schools. The school provides so much. What you do and what you oversee these teachers, it's a wonderful community, wonderful community. But the fact that we're moving so slow, it's going to have long-term effects on our kids. You know, we can see kids that are having mental and emotional problems. They're scared. You know, they might have a really great home life. This school is so great; it's an escape for them. They have other classmates that they're leveraging and they're learning and they're socializing. And all of you know, we're combating this terrible thing we call technology, right? It's like we had our kids, and it's like, you know, a little bit of alcohol is fun, a little bit of gambling is fun, but either of those is dangerous, right? And we say technology, here you go, have the whole liquor cabinet, right? So we're already as parents combating social media, we're combating cell phones, we're combating all of this, and now to top it off, now we're combating being home, chilling at home 3 days a week. Not having all the wonderful things the school provides. I mean, I have to make sure my kids aren't playing video games till 1, 2 in the morning. Well, Dad, I don't have to go to school tomorrow. You know, and you know, they miss that socialization with their friends. It helps their personal development. You know, I have teachers in my life that I still think about and what a wonderful effect they have. They develop me personally. You know, they just provided so much that my home life did not. So I'm asking all of you to do the courageous thing. And I know that you guys have rules you need to follow and that you have state guidelines and so forth, but do the courageous thing, do the right thing. Because our children right now are really being left behind. And I know everybody goes to work every day. Teachers take an oath to educate their children. And what's going on right now should not be an excuse. And I'll be here at every single board meeting, and I'll have all the other people that are you know, that feel the same way. We're going to be here every week or every month that this occurs until our kids are back to school. Because we're just not going to tolerate this. We're so proud of this district, so proud of it, so proud of the teachers and the wonderful impact that they taught our kids to read, they taught our kids arithmetic, how to write. It's been wonderful, but this has to change. Please do the right thing. Please do the courageous thing and open our schools. Thank you.
Okay, that is it for audience participation tonight. I do want to thank you all for coming, for having the courage to speak your mind. There's nobody up here that is not aware that we have a lot of diversity of opinions in the community across the state, across the country. I understand that. I appreciate the number of times that you appreciated Lakeshore over current situation in our history. I know that we can't necessarily turn on a dime, but your voices absolutely have been heard. I just want you to know that we have heard you. We did hear you in your letters. Ms. Gibson, I will check on your comment that you did not receive a response, because I will check on that. That is not a practice of the board. I will check on that and I'll be in touch with you. But anyway, we have heard the emails and voicemails. Haven't had an enormous number, but have had some, as well as your presence here tonight. So thank you for sharing, your thoughts and mindset with us. We do appreciate it. All right. Agenda item number 5 is the superintendent's report. Dr. DePonio.
Thank you. And as we move into the next grading period, the opportunity for our virtual families that elect to move back into the hybrid setting, giving them the opportunity to elect to do that. And then, of course, the logistics that are involved with making sure that we have things appropriately staffed and we're able to make that transition as quickly and efficiently as possible. So first, with the Macomb County Health Department, they have indicated that there has been an increase in cases, which, as was mentioned here today, we anticipate going into this school year that there would be cases in the buildings, and that cases in the buildings does not necessarily equate the need for us to close things down. The issues that we are now seeing is that as cases rise and close contacts occur, that we face those 14-day quarantines, which create some staffing issues, significant staffing issues that we continue to try and work around. Currently, we are in contact with, or attempting to be in contact with recent graduates that might be able to come back and serve as they are in situations where they are working remotely on their college classes. If they have the opportunity to come back and serve the district, if they have 60 hours to substitute, so that when we have classes for staff that go into quarantine, that we have people able to pick up those classes and continue to move forward. We're seeing increased issues industry-wide of a sub shortage that is serving or creating a major issue throughout Macomb County and the state of Michigan that we've not seen in previous years. Subs were always hard to come by. This year, they're just not there. Typically, our substitute pool is made up of retired staff, previous teachers, and they're not coming back to work in these particular cases. That's a logistical problem that we continue to try and come up with some solutions for. The issue that most recently we faced is the change in CDC guidelines for what the definition of a close contact is. And so previously, if you recall, close contact was defined as 15 minutes inside of a 6-foot space for 15 minutes of sustained period. That has changed now to inside of a 6-foot spacing for a cumulative amount of 15 minutes over a 24-hour period. And so what that could possibly look like is, Sue, say I spend 5 minutes with you at 8 a.m. and then another 5 minutes with you at noon and then another 5 minutes at 3. If we were inside of 6 feet and I'm a confirmed case, you would be forced to go into quarantine. So that also could look like that if, say, Shannon is COVID positive and, or let's say the 3 of you are COVID positive and I spend 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, 5 minutes there, that I would be forced to go into quarantine because it's inside of 15 minutes, inside of 6 feet. So the 6-foot social distancing is something that as we've had quarantines and we've had 10 positive cases to date, 46 quarantines. So it's around a 5-to-1 of cases and students going into quarantine. Fortunately, of these cases, there were 2 that were asymptomatic, 8 that demonstrated some type of symptoms, but none resulting in serious illness. The quarantines, however, obviously create a substantial interruption both to the instruction that's provided or the instruction that's received. So we're entering into this new phase of how do we manage those particular situations and really keep track of who's coming into contact with who. It's a challenge that school districts throughout the country are facing and trying to navigate through. Recently, we sent out a survey, actually it was Friday, to begin to gauge family interest in our families returning from virtual back to hybrid, and the focus that we would have in moving from hybrid into full instruction. And so those survey results we will be providing to you, as well as the comments that were provided to community members as we ask their opinion. And so, that's kind of where we're at. We just wrapped up our third week of full days of instruction. Our hope is to move here as we move into, November and December, getting kids that were in the virtual environment back into the buildings, and then expanding on days for our students as well, assuming that we are in a position to be able to do so logistically and safely. A couple positive things. Congratulations to Danielle Smith. Danielle Smith was recognized by the ISD as recipient for the Make a Difference Award. Danielle is a special education teacher at Rogers Elementary. She is a graduate of Lakeshore High School, and she's come back to serve the district and has done so well. And then finally, we had a large number of students that were out assisting the community with yard cleanups, and that will be continuing throughout the fall. It's good to get the kids out, and certainly for everybody to provide additional service to the community as we work through that. So with that, I'll take any questions that the board might have regarding where we're at and where we're headed.
I think you're going to be getting us some survey data soon. Is there any preliminary findings that you can point out as possible?
So one of the major questions that we asked was the primary source of concern within the community. Was it loss of instructional time and a lack of 100% face-to-face, or is it safety and safety concerns regarding COVID? And as you can imagine, split right down the middle. 40% responding that their primary concern was safety regarding COVID, and 40% with concerns about a lack of full-time face-to-face instruction. A variety of comments that would almost make you think that we have two school systems taking place right now. There was a lot of positive comments, and there were a lot of comments that expressed serious concerns about the impact that this is having on their children. So we'll review all that stuff, and we'll provide that to the board. And obviously, that will be information that we will utilize as we continue to move forward.
It is still our goal that hopefully by the end of this year, we'll be back to in-house, everybody
Yeah.
back in school, and I realize there's a lot of variables. I realize that, but I mean, that's kind of always been where we've been heading, that by the end of this year, at the latest, we're going to be back to normal.
Yeah, and so we met with staff this week as well, not this week, last week, to talk about, what are our next steps. We have to be planning down the road, for the first several weeks of the school year, both within the county and certainly within Lakeshore Public Schools. The influence of this pandemic on the county and the district was negligible. It seemed to not have surfaced as we might have anticipated. And one of the positives coming out of the briefing from the Macomb County Health Department is a statement regarding transmission within the buildings, that it does not appear to be the super spreader that everyone thought it might be. That really the safety protocols that we are adhering to within the district and in public schools, throughout the country, appear to be keeping transmission of COVID within the schools at a minimum. But people let their guard down once they leave school. And, all of the cases that we have within Lakeshore Public Schools appear to come from transmission that occurred outside of the district, and kids brought it, or staff brought it into the district. And so, that in our meetings with the staff, there are two things that we said are definitive. Number one, when we get to these marking periods, as we told our families, they would have an opportunity to switch from virtual to in-person, or in-person to virtual if that's the direction that they wanted to go. But we weren't making people commit to a year-long process, that they would have the opportunity to make a shift. And so that's coming up quickly, and we need to plan accordingly. The other thing I told them is I can't imagine that I'm going to retire in a COVID era school. And I'm not planning on retiring anytime soon. But the fact is that we will be back face-to-face full-time, and school will eventually be what it once was. This is obviously the difference that exists not just in our community, but in every community. This debate of, do we flip a switch and do we go back to the way things were, which really comes down to the issue of social distancing. You know, the safety protocols that seem to be in place and seem to be working well, that you know are easy to manage. The washing of the hands, the sanitizing, the cleaning of the buildings. Our operations and maintenance people have been just lights out fantastic. Our kids have been fantastic with wearing masks. Our staff has been fantastic with leading the way in these safety protocols. But the social distancing is the thing that we are going to ultimately have to make a decision as to whether or not we adhere to social distancing recommendations from the CDC or if we do not. And so when you go back to the committee work that was done at the start of the school year, or prior to the start of the school year, you know, that was one of the things that committee recommended to this board, and that we adopted was the adherence to those safety guidelines. The idea that we would remain in that until we are post-pandemic is not a thing that I could see occurring. You know, everyone's tired. Everyone's tired. Everyone's running out of patience. But of course, you know, we're in a situation that none of us have ever experienced before. And so a lot of this is stuff that we do our best in learning from, obviously, numbers, data, science, and try and learn from what we do well and areas that we can improve upon. But yes, to answer, boy, that was a long answer. To answer your question, yes, that's been our goal all along. Yeah, absolutely.
Get back to a normal, some type of a normal.
Sure.
Everything.
Certainly.
We're going to remind us often, because we're at home. Yes, please.
We have other districts that are open full time.
So right now in Macomb County, there are 5 districts that offer, there are 9 districts. Everybody offers 100% virtual. There are 9 districts that offer full and time learning. There are 8 districts that offer hybrid, like Lakeshore. And there are 5 districts that continue to offer virtual only. And so that is as of going into this week. And so those numbers continue to change as well. There are districts that are still virtual that are planning on opening up for in-person instruction here in the next month. There are districts in the past week that shifted from 100% virtual to some level of in-person instruction.
Have we contacted the districts that are opening full time? Data.
Yeah, so I speak with these districts on a weekly basis. This is all Macomb County stuff. So we discuss on a weekly basis exactly who's doing what and what level of success or what struggles they are having. And there's a variety of factors that lead to where districts are at and what they are doing. And logistics plays a large role in a lot of that. Most of the districts that we find that are open for full instruction, and this is not the case, across the board. We know that L'Anse Creuse is a district, right down the road that is open for full face-to-face instruction. But a lot of the districts are northern Macomb County. They're smaller districts, and many have such a huge number of virtual instruction taking place that their in-person instruction those numbers are much, much smaller. The other factor that is unique to Lakeshore is, if you recall, Lakeshore made the decision that our virtual instruction would be done by Lakeshore teachers. And so by doing that, by not outsourcing that to a third party, it takes that teaching staff that could lessen the number. So let's say we're all teachers at this table. If the three of you, and you know, we have 100 kids, if we divided it up amongst the 10 of us sitting at the table here, then you know, you're going to look at a relatively small number. When you take some of those people out because they're serving our virtual population, it makes those class sizes a little bit smaller. So for example, at the high school level, I'll use an English teacher who has, out of a 6-period day, 5 classes, 2 classes that are 100% virtual, and then the remaining 3 classes are split into A, B. So their first hour, on A days, they might have 15 kids. On B days, they have 15 kids. They can spread those kids out. The moment that we make a decision to combine those groups, there's going to be 30 kids in that classroom. And so where we've had situations, and again, the logistical aspects of this is as much of a hurdle for us to overcome, as is obviously keeping an understanding of the health and safety that exists when you're talking about a pandemic. And so the logistics of it, when you have 15 kids in a class and one person might be a confirmed case, the ability for those other 14 people in that classroom not to be inside of a 6-foot space, we can pretty much do. 30, there's going to be close contacts. We found with some of our close contacts that have been quarantined, in a couple cases, if they had just moved a foot away, if everyone was mindful of the 6-foot social distancing, that we could have avoided some of the quarantines that had taken place. And in other cases, you know, we had a number of kindergarten students that were quarantined in one particular group. And of course, kindergartners it's not human nature to ask kindergartners to socially distance. Not at this particular time, but they're still in quarantine. But again, it does not appear, and this is backed up from the Macomb County Health Department, it does not appear that there is significant transmission occurring within the schools. But you know, obviously the health risk that exists to some of our older staff is something that is of concern to those staff members and myself as well.
Are we split with parents, virtual and face-to-face?
It depends on the building and the grade level. It really varies from 25% up to 45%. So there's a wide range of, what's that? Oh, that want to stay virtual. So that was another kind of early bit of information from the survey, that of our families that are currently virtual, there's a large portion that want to move back into face-to-face hybrid. So, you know, once we know those numbers exactly and we get a commitment from families on that, we're going to be able to really start to work through building new schedules so that we can accommodate those requests. Sure.
Other districts have done it. And we have many parents that are going to keep their kids on virtual. Won't it be logical that we can keep them distance in the classroom so that the ones that want to come back?
Well, there again, the social distancing aspect, when we combine our A and B groups, social distancing will be something that will be sacrificed with that. As much as we will try, our schools are not intended to be a place where students or kids, people, are physically distant from one another. So the idea that there would be any expectation for social distancing at that point should not, we should not have that assumption moving into that.
A lot of you parents brought up very good points. I'm one of those people that believe that we can go to Home Depot, we can go to the grocery store, we have people that are packing groceries for us. We can go to a restaurant, walk in with a mask and sit down and take off a mask. Okay? I think we have half the people that have valid points, and we have the other half that are against.
We don't know. That's the other half, we simply don't know.
Well,
If they knew, they would be in here.
I don't want to get into political things. I think a lot of people are afraid of what they hear. I think that pushed on a lot of people. But I would like to get some information from the other schools to see how they're doing it and what their statistics are about COVID and cases. And try to get this back together. I mean, we have kids that are playing football together, we have kids playing soccer, and I'm not understanding some of these guidelines anymore. I'm just not.
We don't follow all CDC guidelines.
I'm sorry, this is not audience
Are we
participation.
allowed to ask questions to
No,
the
this
superintendent?
is a meeting of the board in the public forum.
So is it like, I'm just asking, is it pointless for me to stay then? Because I'm kind of disruptive. And I apologize. I'd rather go and not be a disruptive person.
I would not tell
Are
you.
you voting on in person tonight?
Rusty, if you want to speak to an individual.
No, are you voting on in person tonight? Because if not, I can go and not be a disruption.
No, the agenda does not have a specific line item for that. However, I would
Say
tell
it one
you,
time.
you are welcome to stay, and I think there's valid
No,
conversation.
I'm
between
a
the two.
disruption, and I apologize. I'd rather leave and not be a disruption, because I hear stuff, and the parents, the 40% that don't want to come back, they simply don't know, and you've done nothing to teach them or to assuage their fears.
All right, thank you. I appreciate your honesty.
You don't follow CDC guidelines in other areas.
Mr. Ziegler?
Include sunscreen going outside. Thank you.
I would like to try to get some information from the other schools to see how they're doing. I think the kids need to be face to face, they need to be around the other kids. I just don't want to get political or anything, I just feel there's half and half. So, but statistics would really help us a lot, the other districts.
I work with someone who their children is in the Warren Con district. And she was told that they were going back face to face, that they had the choice to go back face to face or they could continue virtual. And she has elected to keep her children virtual only because the face to face, it's not full day. And she works and she has no way of getting her kids home because Warren consolidated or whatever will not let them ride with their families. It has to be that parent. So she chose to keep her children virtual only because of her work situation. But she really wants them back face to face. Is that something that if we wanted to go back face to face and we allow the families that weren't face to face, they can have face to face. The ones that don't feel safe, they can still stay virtual. Is that something that we?
Yeah, and just to clarify, we offer face-to-face instruction. We do not offer full-time face-to-face
Well,
instruction.
that's what I meant. Full-time face-to-face. You want full-time face-to-face, you can have it. If you're not comfortable with that, well, then you remain virtual. Is that possible?
Everything is possible.
Okay.
And, you know, we've,
It's not practical because of staffing.
well, I mean, that's a definite obstacle that we are challenged with.
So I think two kind of go on.
Michael,
One,
will you
that
turn on your mic and Sue, turn yours off?
I'm trying to get
If
it off.
we return to full-time instruction face-to-face 5 days a week, and previously you mentioned that we had decided to keep our virtual instruction in district with our district teachers instead of hiring a third party where we don't know necessarily who we're hiring, the quality of the teachers, what their credentials are. Is that something we'd be able to offer or continue to offer if we required all of our staff to come, or made the change to go back to full-time 5 days a week? Would we still be allowed or be able to offer virtual to those parents and families who don't feel safe coming back to school, to have a teacher from Lakeshore, not the teacher from God knows where, off of some other, I mean, I'm sure you would vet these people, but that's basically my question. Would we be able to offer Lakeshore teachers virtually if we went back to full-time face-to-face 5 days a week?
We can continue to do that. What we will have to trade off there is social distancing. That ultimately is the issue. And if we go back in time at the very start of this whole discussion, in order for us to be able to adhere to 6-foot social distancing, what we'd have to do is either double our space and double our teachers, or reduce the population by half. And since doubling the space and doubling the number of teachers is an impossibility, then the recommendation was to reduce the number of people in the building to adhere to that social distancing. And that was the result of hybrid learning. So the answer to your question, Mike, is yes, we certainly could continue that. But again, we can't continue that and adhere to the social distancing guidelines.
Okay. So the other question was then, I know you mentioned you did meet with staff. Have you had any concerns from staff on a proposal to return to full-time instruction? I know you mentioned we do have some concerns, obviously, with staff that are older, but have you heard from them any concerns?
Yeah, I think everyone has a level of concern that that exists, whether you're a veteran staff member or if you're a younger staff member. Some of the difference of the situation that we've all been thrust into in education is while restaurants are open, I've heard that mentioned, they're open at 50% capacity. Now, restaurants are not essential. Education is essential. And so there's the consideration and discussion that has to take place of health risks, and included in that discussion of health risks is the risk and consequences of not having a traditional school system and traditional schooling that we were used to from March the 12th backwards. That's part of the consideration that has to be considered as well. If everyone was just humming along and this was perfect and the kids were doing great, we wouldn't be having communities across the nation that are torn apart by these very discussions. But we know that there are kids that have greater needs than what can be provided through online learning or coming into school 2-3 days a week. So that's all stuff that we have to evaluate as we move through this. There is no playbook. Each and every day that we exist in this environment is the first day that we've existed in this environment. I've heard in other discussions the idea that it's been 7 months, and which certainly for all of us it has been 7 months. But if you recall, from March until the end of last school year, that was not a decision that Lakeshore Public Schools had to make. I would anticipate if it was, that we would likely have closed just like everybody else, because we were facing something that we've never faced before in our lives. Our goal from the summer on, when we formed committees and parents, staff, health professionals, how do we tackle this? How do we move forward? Was we've got to offer some in-person instruction in any way, shape, or form. Because the only way you can open is to open. And I see with my counterparts in the 5 districts throughout Macomb County, some of them very, very large, that have not yet opened, getting through that hurdle of just opening the doors and getting back in is proving to be significant. Number of very large districts in Oakland County and in Wayne County, in the Tri-County area that are facing that. And then outstate districts in, towards the Grand Rapids side that have pushed off reopening until January. You can't kick this can down the road too far, but all the while, again, we are in a health crisis that I think we don't fully understand. There's ever-changing information. In the environment that we live in today, there's either a lack of effort to fully understand information, or there's a complete distrust of the source of the information and where it's coming from. And all of those contribute to making this all the more challenging.
Joe, do we have any idea, have we asked, like, is there anyone that's committed 100% to say virtual till the end?
Till the end of the school year?
Till the end, yeah, till as long as we
Oh,
offer
you mean
it.
parents or
Yeah,
family members?
families. I mean, could we say that 10% of our district is not coming back? They will stay virtual until the end of the school year.
We do not know that 100% at this point.
Okay, I mean,
We will know that information here in the coming weeks as we ask people to make a decision and make a commitment. One of the things, again, the idea of not being rigid, of being flexible as we navigate through this, we're asking families to make tough choices. And we don't want them to be forced into a situation that as things change, that they can't change with the information as it becomes available to Lakeshore Public Schools. So we will be asking people as they move into this next marking period. It'll be happening at the elementary level a little bit sooner than it will at the secondary level. But asking them, what are you planning on doing for the second marking period? And for logistical and staffing purposes, we're hoping that would be something that they would be committed to for the remainder of the year. But again, if it's not working, we're going to try and do everything that we can to come up with solutions to make this better for our families.
so then really our next step is to integrate those who are virtual coming into hybrid into the A and B cohort. So
Correct.
you were saying A's 15, B's 15. So now we have more kids coming from virtual into hybrid. So now let's say A's 20 and B's 20. So, I mean, not that we would ever have a 40 kid class, but I'm just using numbers for numbers.
So let me just jump in there. So for example, if all of our virtual kids want to come back,
Right.
we're going to have teachers come with them.
Right.
We're not keeping our teachers out in the virtual world, while, we've got to staff things accordingly. If the numbers worked out perfect, that would be ideal. If, all of the kids that currently are in, Mr. Smith's virtual algebra class wanted to come back, then Mr. Smith comes with them and they just move from the computer into the particular classroom.
Yeah.
But we know that that's highly unlikely that those numbers would be that clean.
I feel like we've had the most, like, ever since the kids went back to school full days, I think that's where we've had the most, because at least when they were at half days, they were in front of their teacher in person for half a day. They were in front of their teacher online half a day. They were in front of their teacher 4 days a week. Now going to full days, basically they're only in front of their teacher 2 days a week. And everything else is done via around communication, because the teacher can't be online in front of someone and in face-to-face in the same class. I mean, I don't know, is there any way to incorporate A class, B class, like the classes are the same, just half the kids attend online and half the kids attend in person. The teacher, I mean, I don't know, obviously we don't have cameras in the room, but in all of our rooms, but I mean, so at least the class is the same, but only half the students go. Because I feel like, I mean, I'm a parent of a senior in high school who has AP Calc, who has data analysis, who has Greek mythology, who has some difficult classes, and some not difficult ones, but they would tend to meet in person as well. But anyway, I digress. I just feel like I've felt the most like talk back since we've gone full days, because I feel like the kids see their teacher less now, even though they're going to school full time. And so I don't know, I had some questions for you when we get to what you're presenting that kind of deal with some of that. But I think maybe we need to think about how our students are attending class. I totally get the social distancing. So social distance, we have 15 people in the class. If we put that class together, we have 30. So now if somebody gets sick, that whole class is quarantined.
Not necessarily.
Not
but there would
necessarily,
be-
but
Right.
in a roundabout. So
Right.
do you want your kid quarantined for different amounts of times, maybe possibly through the year because they're in a larger class? Or do you want a smaller class so that their chance of quarantine is less? And maybe as we go down the future, it's not going to happen anyway, but I think that we need to take a look at how our students are attending class, because I feel like they could go to class in person, and they can also go to that class online somehow, so that they're still part of class 4 days a week. And then my question was too, is to, I know the high school is starting to offer office hours on Mondays. What is happening with Mondays in regard to staff prep and to how it can be more integrated into student interaction?
Rochelle, I'll let you kind of tackle the Monday schedule.
So it's different at every level. In the elementary, every classroom kicks off their day of asynchronous learning with their teachers. So their teachers are meeting them, go over what their learning activities are, how to interact, and make sure that they're well aware of what's going on. At this point with our schedule with hybrid, for the elementary, they also have a specials class. So even on that day that is totally remote, they have 2 live meetings with teachers at that time. Office hours are set up for middle school and for high school. That's really, especially since conferences is working on getting plans with parents and with students. They're working on not just having office hours. When we hear office hours, we think they're sitting back and eating popcorn and waiting for someone to show up, and that's not what they're doing with office hours. This is their opportunity to, the kids that we have not made two-way connections with, the kids who are, haven't been turning in assignments, this is their opportunity to be able to reach out, especially because they are only seeing them 2 days a week, and if they're getting lost in that shuffle. So,
Rochelle, I'm sorry to interrupt. Microphone.
I'm supposed to be watching that. Sorry.
Karen. So office hours can be misleading in that it sounds like they're just sitting there, and if someone shows up, they show up. Our teachers are being very proactive about reaching out to students, being there to do that, to answer their questions, to help them through things, but also reaching out to students and families for those that they need to connect with, and doing that during their office hours. Previously, if we think about our professional learning communities, we had an early release every other Wednesday for professional learning communities. One of the things that we did, and this was really to think forward about when we bring students back more often, we want things to change the least amount for families as possible. And so PLCs have been on Wednesdays since way before I came here. We incorporated that into those Mondays. So that's time that they normally would have had an early dismissal anyway. And we kind of wrapped all of that into that one day because we want the other days to be the least changed as we move forward, so that families aren't having to scramble and come up with different types of solutions.
That first Monday was Labor Day.
Yeah.
Was Labor Day, so that worked out well with the,
Yes.
with the hybrid.
And so that's a good point, because coming up next week, Monday is a professional development day, and Tuesday is the day that's scheduled off because it's our election. So next week is only a 3-day week for our students anyway.
teachers will have asynchronous things for some families are looking for more and want to do more. But even if we were in person, 100%, those are 2 days that students would not be in school. So it'll be the same regardless of where.
Correct, just like how last Thursday was at the high school because it was conferences. It was,
Schedule.
yeah.
One of the things that was changed last year is that we now have the ability again to have professional development for our teachers and count it as instructional moments, if minutes in our calendar. And so those are scheduled, and those are scheduled ahead of time. They're already on Monday. So again, to be the least disruptive, that's one of the reasons why the schedule is chosen this way, is that as we integrate more and more back, how can we keep it as similar to what parents have already scheduled for as possible, knowing that it's a struggle right now with what we're asking. Yeah. Did I answer all your questions?
Yeah.
All right. Everybody good with Dr. DePonio?
Yeah, I would like to just close by saying that with all of this, this is obviously a bad situation. I see the exhaustion and frustration that exists within our families, and I see the exhaustion that exists with our staff. It is obviously as complex and difficult and filled with as differing opinions as you could possibly imagine, and we hear those on a regular daily basis. It is obviously important as we continue to navigate through this. We do that thoughtfully, that we consider the needs of everybody as best we can, and that we ultimately have our students' best interest in mind, and the health and safety of our staff as well. But critical to this is civility and decency, and that these discussions be done in a fashion that are going to advance us in our ultimate goal here, and not move us in a different direction. I'll leave it at that.
All right, we are moving on to item number 6, item for actions. 6A is the consent agenda. Can I get a motion, please? Motion by Mrs. DeLong, supported by Mr. Colling. Any comments or questions, anybody? All right, we're going to continue with roll call votes, if you don't mind, Ms. Munger.
Mr. Densler is absent. Mr. Bakotic?
Aye.
Mrs. DeLong? Mr. Ziegler?
Aye.
Mrs. Bartle?
Aye.
Mr. Colling? And Mrs. Munger, aye.
All right. Item 6B is the personnel report. Do we have Dr. Lewis?
We do not have Dr. Lewis. You got Dr. DePonio. All right. Move to approve the retirement of Lynn LeBlanc, Spanish teacher, Lakeshore High School. Retirement effective at the end of the day, January 29th of 2021. 25 years of service from August 1995 to January 2021. Move to accept the employment of Jennifer Villasuerda, Secretary. Sorry, Villasuerda. Thank you. Secretary, Lakeshore High School, effective October 26, 2020.
All right, motion by Mrs. Munger, support by Mrs. DeLong. Any questions, comments? All right, go ahead, Ms. Munger, with the roll call.
Mr. Bakotic?
Aye.
Mrs. DeLong? Mr. Ziegler?
Aye.
Mrs. Bartle?
Aye.
Mr. Colling?
Aye.
Mrs. Munger, aye. And Mr. Densler is absent.
All right, and I'll just say that the personnel report, kind of like our historical agenda item of student celebrations and having kids in this room, is really one of the worst parts for me of this whole changed environment. I can't wait till we have kids back here and are celebrating different things, and we're going to talk about some celebrations even prior to that. However, same thing with staff. As we have staff coming and going, it's just a shame that I don't see their faces in the room. So Ms. LeBlanc has been with us for quite a long time, and I thought, today I was thinking 25 years. At a minimum, probably 2,500 kids that she's had an impact on. So we appreciate her efforts, and we look forward to Jennifer joining the staff, but it's just unfortunate that we're not here with them today. All right, item 6C. We are going to turn this over to Ms. Weinkoop.
Motion to approve the reconfirmation of the COVID preparedness and response plan as presented. And I will go over what this is for a minute, I'm assuming, before you guys do that. So when the legislature returned and approved their requirements for a return to learning, there are 3 things that we are required to report on every single month. One is to reconfirm the instructional delivery method, so to inform the audience and the board of the delivery method. The second is to gather the public comments, and we heard that today, and those will be added to the report that is submitted to the state. And then the third is a weekly review of our two-way interaction rates that has taken the place of the standard attendance, so we will report those out. We are required to report from pre-K through 12th grade, the different instructional delivery methods. So at pre-K, we are offering both a virtual section, which includes live synchronous and asynchronous, as well as a hybrid, which is a combination of in-person and virtual, and students in both are supplied with some educational hard copy materials. GSRP day looks a little bit different than the K-12 environment. They attend half days in AM and PM classes, so they are actually attending 4 days a week, but they are attending half days. There is an AM and PM class at Rogers, an AM and PM class at Masonic Heights, and at Violet they have an AM class and then a PM virtual class. For K-5, and actually while this is reported out in separate levels, it is the same for K-5 through 9-12. We again offer families the choice to attend a 100% virtual or an in-person hybrid. Students are attending 2 days a week in an assigned cohort for a modified full day of instruction. Mondays, students are remote with synchronous, asynchronous, and educational hard copy materials for learning activities as assigned by these students. So the delivery methods are hybrid, which is a combination of in-person and virtual, virtual with live synchronous, virtual with asynchronous, and educational hard copy materials. The only note to that is that at Northlake High School, again, when we talked about the social distancing earlier, their 50% that have returned are such a small population that they are able to be back 4 days a week and still be socially distanced. So those students who are choosing a hybrid are in 4 days a week. So that is the instructional delivery model, which has not changed since we went back to school. What has changed is the number of days and the number of hours, and that's why we reported those specifically in addition to the delivery methods that we chose. The next thing that we have to report is our two-way interaction rates, and as I mentioned earlier, this is in lieu of the traditional attendance. I'm going to report weeks 1 through 5, and I just want to remind the board and let the public know that these are not traditional weeks of school. So while we are starting our 8th week of school, we have just finished our 6th week of two-way communication because that follows the pupil accounting model, which is a Wednesday through a Tuesday. And that can be a little bit confusing, especially for parents who have teachers trying to follow up and why is it on these days? So that's why it's off a little bit. On our first week, we had a 75% attendance rate. I do want to make a note for that this two-way communication requires twice weekly for there to be communication. And so that first week, 85% of our students had a two-way communication, but only 75% had that second two-way communication. And that was getting used to the system. When we started school, we actually did not even have the proper guidance of how we were to account for two-way communication. So that was still being developed as the legislature adopted it. In week 2, which was September 16th through the 22nd, we had 90% of the two-way communications. In week 3, it was 88%. In week 4, it was 89%. And in week 5, it was 91%. I'm sorry, week 4 was 89%, week 5 was 91%. And this is something that will be updated monthly for the board for the remaining of the 2021 school year and reported into the state reporting system.
All right, thank you. All right, so with that, I need a motion to approve the reconfirmation of the COVID-19 preparedness and response plan as presented. All right, motion by Mrs. DeLong, support by Mr. Bokotic. Now we have time for questions. You have some for Ms. Weincoop? Nobody? Okay, roll call vote again, please.
Mrs. DeLong. Mr. Ziegler. Bartle.
Aye.
Mr. Conley. Mrs. Munger. Aye. Mr. Densmore.
All right, item 6D is to certify delegates for the MASB Fall Conference, and there is a little bit of a change for that. As of this afternoon, I received notification from the MASB that the organization does not permit for a virtual vote. So there will be a delegates assembly where they do still need to have quorum of attendance, and I'm willing to participate on Lakeshore's behalf. There does not need to be delegates, and we don't need to vote on delegates because there will be no vote during the delegates assembly this year. If you want to participate, you can still do that. We can facilitate it for you, but you should have gotten notifications in the emails as well. If you want to do any part of the conference, it's just online. The whole thing is virtual this year. There is no cost to the district this year, so that's kind of nice. And there is still a good number of educational opportunities for all of us. So the dates are, I believe it starts Thursday the 5th, runs through the 7th. So if you have some time, take a look at those options. And with that, we will begin board commentary. How about we start with you tonight, Michael?
I'll just start by saying congratulations to Lynn.
I'll say that again. Congratulations to Lynn LeBlanc after 25 years of her service at retirement. We wish her all the best, and unfortunately we can't do it in person, but we hope someday maybe we can. And welcome to Jennifer as she starts. I'm sure it's exciting. I think her first day was today, is that right? So congratulations and welcome to her. And then to kind of address some of the comments that were brought up today at the meeting, my children are going going the hybrid 2 days a week. And I know when we started this whole process over the summer, do you remember, Rochelle, how many people it was that participated in the committees to come up with the different parts of our learning plan? I mean, yeah, roughly 200 people. So the plan that we put in place when we voted, and we sat through quite a long meeting hearing about it. I know that wasn't your fault, Rochelle, but it was a very long meeting. I think we went to about midnight for that meeting. That was the effort of about 200 people from our community, not just our administrators, not just teachers, parents, and other members of the school community as well. And they came up with the plan that we're now all following. So I was happy to support that, not just because it's something that Joe gave us because he thought it was good, or that the state of Michigan gave us because they thought it was good. It was something our community came together and collaborated with each other and came up with something that we all felt comfortable with. I'm glad that we provide an option for families that don't feel it's safe, for students who may not be able to because of a compromised immune system from an illness, family members who might be at risk if their student comes home with COVID and gets them infected. So I'm proud of what we did, and I'm continuing to support it for that reason. And I sent my kids back. Believe me, I'm one of those parents that wishes we could be back full time, because I'm down in my basement right now practicing law on Zoom with the judge while my kids are upstairs running around making noise, hoping that they're not interrupting a court proceeding that I'm on. And yes, it's something that we're all going through. I mean, believe me, I don't like the situation we're in. It's affected me a great deal. I'm not able to practice law to the degree that I think is fair to my clients. People still aren't able to have a jury trial. In Macomb County, there hasn't been a jury trial since we shut down back in March. We're not on track to have jury trials until 2021. I currently have one jury trial in Macomb County scheduled for January. I'm concerned I'm going to be able to have that jury trial because of the way that community spread is getting out of hand again here. And if people aren't upset about that, I've read one article so far comparing the fact that people aren't able to have jury trials because it's not safe. Yet we have all these complaints about people not being able to go to school full time. I understand it's an inconvenience. It's a huge inconvenience for us. It's an inconvenience for me to have my kids home every day. It's an inconvenience for the people that help my mother-in-law and my mother that come over during the week that would normally be watching my 3-year-old that are now having to be teachers to my 7-year-old twins. It's something we're all having to deal with. When we made this meeting back in August and accepted this plan, it was pretty obvious this wasn't going to be a year that was satisfactory to all of us as far as our instruction goes. We knew going in that this wasn't going to be good enough because of what all of our teachers and what Rochelle and what Joe have been spending their life working towards is an in-class, in-person instructional model. That's something that isn't safe for everybody at this point in time. I understand, obviously, we know a lot more about what's available, what this disease can do, how it spreads. But one thing we've learned pretty clearly is the longer you're in a space with a large amount of people, the greater the risk of transmission, the greater the risk of spread. So I don't want to put our staff in a position where they feel they're not safe coming to school. I understand it's not as big of a risk to children, but when you ask I'm sorry, I don't want to mispronounce your name, Maniaci, when you asked who are we protecting, it's not just the students here, it's the community. It's the teachers who might be worried about their health. It's the families who might be worried that if their child does get the disease and they bring it home, and that could be a risk for them. It might be someone whose grandparents are concerned or they're concerned for their parents. Me personally, my brother had contracted COVID 2 weeks ago at a wedding, and he'd been staying home. He's an IT guy. He doesn't have to leave his house. He barely gets dressed in the morning. He just throws on whatever's there, sits down at his desk. He went out to one wedding and he contracted COVID. And we were pretty concerned because my brother is a larger guy, bigger than me, a smoker. We were worried he might have some serious side effects. So far, luckily, he hasn't. But then there was concern too, because my father earlier this year had a serious heart attack, found out he had artery disease where his arteries were blocked. So it's a concern there. Are we going to infect him? Is he going to have a risk for that? If the kids are going full time, if they're bringing it home to us, that's not something I want to put on our families. So that's why I think what we're doing now, what we've done so far has been comfortable for us, has been comfortable for a lot of the parents that we've heard from so far on online surveys. And I know Joe shared something with comments where it was, like he mentioned, pretty evenly split, where people are happy with what we're providing. They feel safe with the hybrid stuff. They don't feel safe. They want to stay virtual. I mean, we're not going to satisfy everybody. And it's not like, we all want to do this. This is not something we want to do. We want to have our kids back in school, but right now it's not safe. If you can't have a jury trial because it's not safe, and that's not going to happen anytime soon. I mean, we're doing more than Macomb County and the Michigan Supreme Court are for your constitutional rights there. I'm happy to continue the way we're doing it. If we're going to go back full time, I want to make sure it's safe, and I want to make sure that our teachers, our staff, and our community is safe doing it. And I'm not going to bend down or bow down to pressure unless there's something that will show that we can do it safely. And I respect everybody's opinions. I know it's been difficult for people in different ways. The lady here that was indicating she doesn't have a ride for her kids, I'd be happy to go pick her kids up if it made a difference, because I live right here on Violet as well. So, if it's something that I can do to help out, I'd be happy to do it. Well, eventually we'll get through this pandemic. It'll be a nightmare that we'll all remember, and hopefully we'll never have to go through again. And until that time, we just have to do the best we can with what we have and make sure that we're keeping each other safe. So, thank you.
Well, I'll keep mine partly short because I pretty much agree with everything Michael has to say. I mean, when our community put together our return to school, input of our community, our students, our staff, our families, health department officials, they put it together and we approved it and we agree with it. However, if you are having struggles, there is still Lakeshore. What is the email that they can contact? Like the COVID-19 help. If you're having struggles at home, we're here for our Lakeshore families. We've said that many times. And so please contact the district for help, for maybe switching cohort days might help. Maybe, whatever you need. But the district is here to help, and we would hope that you could contact us so we can help you. We don't want anyone to struggle. I do think that we just need to care about each other, care about families that are scared about COVID, and families that feel like their constitutional rights are being held against them. But we need to find a common ground that's the best for our students, that will bring them back to school safely. Thank you.
Okay. First of all, congratulations to Ms. LeBlanc on her upcoming retirement. 25 years is quite an achievement. And of course, to my good friend Jennifer, congratulations on her job. I know I give her a hard time, but I think she is a big value being added to our district in that position. So congratulations to her. To the parents that were here tonight speaking, and any that are virtual that are listening to this, please know, I think I can speak on behalf of my colleagues here, we do take our role seriously. We understand everybody's frustration. We are frustrated too. And I know with COVID, there are people that are extremely paranoid, and there are some on the other side of the fence that just, want to go about living their life. I'm kind of on the fence with it. My husband had it. He was hospitalized at the very onset of it. So yes, I take it seriously. But as I've said, and as I've said before, and I tell my friends, I'm fearful of it, but I'm not living in fear. Yes, I'm going to restaurants. Yes, I take precautions. Do I enjoy wearing this mask? No, I do not. But I'm doing it to help protect myself and anybody else because of the fact that my husband had it. I know how quickly he can get it. We don't even really know how he contracted it. So I know it's serious. We are trying to do everything to keep everyone safe. We don't want a community outbreak and have to shut everything down. And yes, I feel the kids would learn better if they all be back in school. Friday night was the big Lakeview game. Me as a booster member, all I could think of was how much I miss being at the concessions and during that football game, and just no, I don't exactly enjoy cleaning up after concessions, but just the fun of it, the atmosphere, the parents, the students, the game. We're all missing that. It was senior night. I saw the pictures and I missed that. We're all missing things. We all want to get back to it, but I also don't want to rush to get back and then we have an outbreak again and things are shut down. And I mean, it's bad enough we have to alter our lives as much as we have. I do want to get back to a normal, but I want to try to do it safe. So I'm just asking the parents, please understand this is not easy for us up here. We do hear you. We share your frustration. We do have resources available to try to help you out. Take advantage of it. Be in contact with the district. And that's it. I just, again, please just understand we are trying. And I appreciate you coming to the meetings, and I do encourage you to come and be a part of this. We want to get back there. We really do. So thank you, and I hope everyone has a good evening.
Thank you. Well, there's not much that I can add to that beyond what my colleagues have already expressed. I mean, we're all in lockstep. We want, our ultimate goal is to return back to face-to-face. It's what our kids need. And the frustration, as Sue just mentioned, we all share in it. There's nothing that I want more than to go back to normal. I want my mom to be back in front of her kindergarten class. I want all of our kids to be able to go back to school normally. But the fact of the matter is, we made a plan, as Mr. Bakoch said, with community support that allows us the flexibility to get there when it is safe to do so. And we are following the best guidelines that our county and our country have. We are not health professionals. It'd be news to me if any of us up here were. I don't think we are. We are education professionals for the most part. And that said, we need to balance those aspects and do what's best for our kids and for our community. So that's all that I'll add to that. I'm certainly frustrated beyond belief, but it's not looking for sympathy, not looking for kudos. We know that whatever we do is going to make a lot of people upset, but we're doing it in good faith. That it's the best that we can do for our kids at this time. And we'll continue to monitor, we'll continue to update, we'll continue to progress as we can. So that's all that I'll say on it. And I appreciate all the comments. I appreciate everyone that shows up. It matters that you show up. And I hope everyone has a great night.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, I will talk a little louder then. When this started back in March, Mr. Dr. DePonio, administration, and all of us got together, and I think you implemented the right plan. We went into summer, and the community got involved with teachers and administrators, and developed another plan that helped guide us and give us some thought. I believe between summer and now, we have learned a lot from scientists, doctors, and perhaps maybe we need to get people involved again and come up with another strategy because of the way things have been involved with treatments and statistics and the data. I think we have to start thinking about our plan and possibly revising that. I appreciate everybody's comments out there, and I know everybody here, we do read all the letters. Sometimes something might get lost in the shuffle, but I'm sure Mrs. Gibson's letter will be addressed. I thought it was too much. Besides that, I did go to the legislative meeting, which was very fascinating. They talked about, the biggest thing they did was just they revised the Open Meetings Act until 20th of January. They're going to keep it the same. And then after that, it's going to change again. And I believe they sent us an amendment for that, for Neola. Neola sent an amendment to add. It's not interesting, it's just they had to amend it to provide Open Meetings Act and the guidelines, which, like I said, November or January changes to, I believe we all have to be present at open meetings. It could change, who knows? So, besides that, I'm done.
All right, not going to rehash too much because I appreciate the board's commentary and you've all covered much. So I do want to restate though, the COVID-19 help at lsps.org. It was very, very helpful in the beginning. And I'm not sure how much activity there has been lately, but I know for me, I haven't really been pushing or publicizing that lately. And clearly we have ongoing needs and different needs as this continues for us. So that is still active. Again, COVID-19 help at lsps.org. I want to thank Dr. DePonio. He actually has already found the response that was previously sent to Ms. Gibson, and it's been resent. So that was handled the first time, but rehandled this evening. So thank you for being punctual and prompt on that. And then I just want to end with something good and positive and kid focused here. So that fall cleanup has been an annual thing now for Lakeshore Schools, and our staff jumps in and helps out, and a lot of our kids participate and help out. And it's just an enormous boost in the community. I've seen so many social media posts and heard from people that, you know, reap the benefit of that effort. And so I think it's just an awesome thing that our school community consistently is taught to care about the greater community. So with that, I have nothing else, and I will take a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mrs. DeLong, supported by Mr. Colling. All in favor?
Hi.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.
I told